Yeah, okay, there we are. You can see what I'm on about. Okay, so I'm going to first start off with trying to dive right in to how to do this. It's for transcription, so you can transcribe. Transcription is essentially converting audio into text, and this can be films. It can be your own thoughts. I find it very helpful. Like you go for a run and you record your thinking, and then you come home, you transcribe it and convert it into some valuable text that you can use for writing, and I'll show you how to do that. But of course, the traditional in the social science and humanities, we've done interviews and focus groups, etc. In the old days, you had to sit there, with earphones on, listening and sort of typing them out, a very difficult and laborious and error-prone endeavor. And there's also lots of information we get off the news. There's videos. I recently transcribed. I've got a French DVD that I converted into text, and I use Whisper to not only transcribe the DVD, but also to translate it into English. So it's a very versatile and useful tool. So to run it, you need to, or I'm using. You don't need to. You can use Python. You can run Python from your desktop, a desktop app. But I find the easiest place to do all the stuff is with Google Colab. So what my recommendation is to you to you first have to install. You notice over here, this is my Google Drive. So I'm working in Google Drive. I'm going to give you an opportunity. If you look in the chat, you'll see I've created a little video. Here's the video over here. It's a 2-minute video on how to install Google Colab onto your drive, how to sort of launch it and include it. So it's Google Colaboratory. You go to your drive, you add apps, and then you just add Google Colaboratory as an app on your drive. So it's a bit like it's an app basically that you install on your Google profile. It allows you to use Google's basically computing engine. You can upload Python scripts to Google, and then Google engine processes it and then sends it back to you. So here's a little video. You can see the link over there on how to do that. I'm going to talk just a bit generally why you're doing that. So hopefully you're in this process. You go then install Google Colab. You open Drive in Google. You go there, you install Google Colab, and then I'll show you how to run and do the transcription as you go ahead. But just a little bit about Whisper. So Whisper is an OpenAI. OpenAI are the people behind ChatGPT. It was trained on, so this is all part of this big change to machine learning, sort of unsupervised machine learning. It was trained on 680,000 hours of multilingual, multitask audio that was scraped from the web. So OpenAI scraped tons of audio file from the web and then train the model, and it works in the exact same way as training text recognition, the ChatGPT. It basically goes, it chops the audio up into little pieces and then develops it's a neural network that tries to predict what's the next thing going to be. And then it becomes very, very, very good at sort of knowing what to expect that's going to come next. And then it's going to listen to the audio and it's going to create your transcription, but it also has a kind of sense of what kinds of things would come next. So it becomes extremely accurate means of transcription, just the same as actually ChatGPT tries to predict what's the next word going to be, or what the next sentence is. That's basically how all these models work. So the strength of Whisper, it's robust to imperfect audio because it's got this prediction model. Even if your audio is not great, it actually does a great job and if you've done it for transcription yourself, sometimes you battle to hear what it says, and you yourself aren't perfect, but Whisper is actually pretty good. It's at that. It's good across accents in many languages because it's been trained on many accents in many languages. You can run it locally. You can run it off Google Colab. It's easy to call Python. It's easy to call Whisper from Python. So you can use Python to call this Whisper model. It's basically a model. So Whisper is a model that's there somewhere. OpenAI owns this model. And from Python, we can call the model and say, hey, come here, I want you to do this job for me. And we're doing a lot of that kind of work. That's basically how sort of computational work is in the new world is working. So we just call models, we get them to do different jobs. And so we need to have little bits of script to call the model and give it the job that we want it to do. And that's why Google Colab is so helpful for us. Okay, so that's enough of a background. I'm going to now open the Whisper um, file. This is what it looks like. By the way, if you want to know where I got this Whisper code from, I wrote it using ChatGPT. So like, it's amazing. These new models, and Anthropic is even better. The Claude models, the Opus model it's incredible what it can. You can write Python code. Even if you know nothing about it, I'm not a Python coder, and I wrote this thing, it worked perfectly. If any errors, it will fix them. So this is basically a little piece of code over here. It's broken into chunks. The first chunk we're going to run now is just basically calling the Whisper and installing some packages that is needed to run. Um, you have to just wait a little bit for all these things to do their work. I hope it all works now, especially that there we are. It's taking a bit longer. Maybe it's because I'm connected to this webinar as well as to maybe my bandwidth's not enough. It's a bit slow. It doesn't matter. It's going to do the job for us. So the first thing we do is like if you're coding in R or something, you've got to sort of install your libraries and stuff. So this over here, that's what the installer is doing over here. It's installing Whisper and the sort of the context dependencies. And the nice thing about this, it tells you when it's complete and tells you how long it took to do it. So it looks like everything's here. It took 36 seconds to complete that task. Now, the next thing you want to do is you've created your environment now in Whisper. Now, the next thing you want to do is you want to upload your audio file. So we're going to run this chunk of text and it's going to ask us to choose our file. So we're going to choose our file. And I've got a little file here on my desktop. I don't know if you can see that. It's called bias notes copy. So there we are. It's now reading, it's uploading my audio file. You see, it's an MP4, it's an M4 file, it's an audio, and it's uploading my audio. It's telling me how much done now. It's 100% done. So I've especially for this, this is I think a 2-minute or 3-minute little sort of my own thoughts on bias. But if it's an hour or long meeting or something like that, or an interview, it's going to take a lot longer to upload it. Okay, the next step over here, we just go through it step by step. The next step is going to be import Whisper. Just takes a little bit of time going through, and then the next thing is we're going to load this model. Okay, goes quickly. We're going to create a file name. That's very quick. And this is where it's the engine. This is now doing it. Now this step over here is the important step. It's going to apply the Whisper model to the file and it's going to transcribe it. So let's click on that. And this takes a little bit of time because this is the hard legwork, it's the heavy lifting that the model is doing applied to our audio file. Now, folks, this piece of code, the script, there's a link in the chat. You can download it. We've put it up on in a public repository, so you can download it. You don't have to create your own file. You can download the file. You install it on in a directory on your Google Drive. I've got a directory there called Colab, and all my files I'm putting there, and Whisper's one of them. So you basically just save the file in the Drive environment, and then you just click on that file. You saw how I did it. You just double click on the file name and it's going to launch it. If you've got Colab installed, it's going to launch it in Colab and then you can just run it. And this is true for any data analysis you want to do, any language coding you want to do, anything you want to do, you can just run it in the Colab environment. Okay, so here we are. It's now completed this task. We can now it's going to create us a transcript. Here's a transcript over here. You can write it to a file. I don't normally like doing that. I just copy and paste. I go Control C over there, copy that. And what my next step that I normally do. Um, okay, just get rid of that. Okay, so the next step I normally do is I go to ChatGPT, your old trusty, and I just go and paste it. I'm going to say, give it a little prompt. Okay, produce a verbatim transcript, and then I'm going to just go and paste the text over there. This is the text this is the transcribed text. You can see it's not much. This is a short little audio file. So I say now, I tell ChatGPT, produce a verbatim transcript, and here's the text. That's the transcript that I copied. You see, I copied it from here. There it is over there. Because what is bias? That's my first sentence I'm using to myself. What is bias? I'm speaking into my phone. Um, so here it is in ChatGPT. I say produce a nice verbatim transcript for us, and click yes, and here we are. And it says because what is bias is put in nice little paragraphs, and it's made it look um, it's done some quite nice formatting for us. Now, the next thing I would normally do, now just let me get rid of this uh, Zoom controls there. Now, next thing I'd normally do is I'd add another prompt over here, identify key concepts and map out the logic. So we can, now that we've got our, we don't need to stick with the transcript itself, although this might be all that you want, and that's fine as well. But we can ask it to identify what are the key concepts in my musings, what are the key concepts. So here we are. I must say this GPT 5.2 is brilliant at conceptual work. So it's identifying bias is socially distributed, associations, the core mechanism is conversational dynamics. This is what I'm interested in. It's a distributed social field. I'm interested in large language models. Et cetera, et cetera. So it's got it's a whole lot of processing. Now, it's very important whenever you're using these generative AI models how much time have I got? I've still got a few minutes. When you're using these generative AI models, it's always good before trying to get your output to you build the basic architecture first, you build the structures, and then you ask it to give the output that you're looking for. So I built the structures now in two ways. The first bit of structure that I put down there is just getting the transcript. So Whisper helped us do that. Now I've got a kind of conceptual architecture, and now I'm going to stick in my final prompt over here. I'm going to ask it provide a 500-word integration. So it's got the data, it's got the transcript, my thoughts. It's now got the conceptual framework, and now I'm going to ask it just to provide a short integration, just to see, because those were like just my musings, those thoughts that are recorded. And yeah, it's doing it. It's doing such a brilliant job at it. Bias is best understood not as a property of individuals, but as something that moves through social interaction. That's exactly what I'm arguing. It's exactly it emerges when associations between groups and traits, people and events, categories and meanings are produced and circulated in talking behavior. That's my theory. That's my work. That's what I was thinking when coming back from my run. But now what it's done, using the transcriber and using the generative AI, it's helped reproduce my thinking in a way that helps me reflect on my own thoughts, and actually now helps me take this now and then as a launching pad for my own writing, my own research, my collaboration, etc. So, what I've tried to share with you here is what I think is the kind of new workflow for academic production, and transcription is critical because we are speaking human beings, and this is a text environment in which we're working. So we need to be able to convert our audio into text. And the thing that I've been doing recently as well, I'm often asked to give talks. I just record myself giving the talk, and then I do the same thing. I transcribe it, and so I've got this condensation of my thinking in text form that I'm then using as a starting point for my writing. And I think that's I think I even did less than 20 minutes, but we want to keep these things short and brief. And if there are any questions about how to implement this yourself, the most important thing is that you can do it yourself. It's easy, really. Yeah, is the first thing you do is you go to you install you're working in the Drive environment. Here is Drive. I mean Google Drive. You see this little triangle there? That's Google Drive. I created a little folder called Colab Notebooks. Here's some of the notebooks I have over here. You can see here's a Whisper French. I translate in French. Here's my Whisper transcriber. Okay. And once you've got Colab installed, then you install Colab. Oh, where is it over here? Then you install Collaboratory in your Google Drive. Okay. And now what you simply do if you want to run it, let me just go back over here. You just double click on it. You just double click. There we are. Hey, presto. It launches it just like that. Here we are. There's our model. Now you can run your Python code in the Colab environment, and we've given you the script. You can use the script, and you just run it cell by cell. Just a question that some people are concerned about. What about data protection and confidentiality? That's the nice thing about Whisper. There's a lot of you can go and pay a subscription to get transcribing services. In other words, companies have built little apps that use the same thing we're doing over here, and they charge you to do it, and then you have to give them all your data. And so there's huge privacy concerns around that. You have to trust this sort of capitalist organization. Yeah, there's none of those privacy concerns. It's your data. All you're doing is you're calling the model, and it's processing your data. But the data is yours. Obviously, you need to protect your data, especially if it's interviews and it's people's names and all that kind of thing. You need to protect the data on your own machine. So the data protection is up to you. I think that's everything from me. I will stop the share, and then if there are any questions, I'm happy to take them. Thank you all.
Thank you so much, Prof. I have a question of my own. Could you tell us more about transcribing your French notes? I think some of our participants or listeners would be maybe transcribing content that's in another language.
Okay. Okay, that's a good question. Look here, I've only used French, transcribed French, and it was absolutely no problem. I'll share my screen again. It's simply, and once again, I just built this I asked ChatGPT to help me do this. So you can see my French Whisper over here. It looks exactly the same as the one that I've just showed you, but it's got an extra line in here. See here, it's just got step 8 over here. It's got just a little bit of extra code that does the transcriptions, and then you can even create subtitles in the language that you want. So it's absolutely easy to do. I mean, I don't know which languages it can do and which it can't do. I haven't checked that, but I'm sure we could find that out if someone just did a search on ChatGPT. What languages can Whisper transcribe? It'll tell you straight away. But it's amazingly versatile. It can take, of course, you've got to be careful with machine translation because it's got all of its own biases and stuff. Actually, folks, I need to mention this is all this stuff. You can't just rely on it. It's like it's going to produce the first version, but you've got to read it, you've got to think about it, you've got to understand, especially if you're doing interviews, because it can also hallucinate, it can make up stuff. So it gets some things wrong, and we can't just offload our work onto the machine. The machine is a tool to help us.
Sakilim Sweli has a question for us. There's a couple on the text though, so I think we could give him a platform quickly. Then we'll go into the text question.
Hi, Prof, and thank you so much, Cindy. I have a question around what I consider dying methodologies or data analysis methodologies, something like conversation analysis. I don't know if you've had experience in using Whisper or any of these sort of models in producing that Jeffersonian type style transcript that then, as a researcher, you can really sit with and interrogate in that nature.
Yes, okay, Sakina, it's so nice to see you again after such a long time. How lovely. I love this. The method's tree. It's a space for us to connect. How fantastic. Um, so yes, it's that's a much tougher task. Um, yeah, that is, it's not just recognizing words. I do a lot of conversation analytic kind of work, and I don't know any transcriber. And there are some models that try and do this. I think there's one called Jefferson or something like after Gail Jefferson. So there are some models that try and do this, but there's nothing great. I mean, it this here gets us the text down, and it actually does quite a good job in sort of separating speakers. But then for Jefferson transcription or for sort of conversation analysis, that's where the research will still have to come in and do that work. Yeah, it's an interesting sort of problem. It's a machine learning problem because we are human beings are the ability to interact with each other and to interact and to like sort of repair each other and to interrupt and to like sort of pause and all this kind of thing. It's like dancing. It's like some beautiful dance that we do in language, and the machine unfortunately is not a great dancer.
Thank you so much. Thanks.
All right, I believe there's another question from Sean. He says, just 1 second, I lost the text. Sorry. Says, great presentation, Prof. When you started, you highlighted that Whisper is good with accents, many language. I'm curious if it is reliable when working with code switching context. I'm asking because people tend to code switch a lot when I'm interviewing them. Also, I am using it for research. Are there ethical implications of using Whisper for sensitive interviewing data?
Okay, so first, let me start with the second one, ethical implications. We always have to be cautious of using data. So there's no sort of, you're not offloading or giving your data to some third party. So that's the first thing. It's your data. You're calling a model and you're processing your data. Once you finish this Colab session, it all gets refreshed. So there's no ethics in that sense. I would be very cautious of sort of taking my interviews. I think it would violate ethics. Take the interviews and give it to one of these sort of online transcriber apps, because there you are handing basically your data to a third party. Here you're not handing it to a third party, so there's no ethical issues there. Obviously, what you do with the file, where that file is located, where the data file is located, that all has to be in secure, in a secure space. Password protected, etc. So the usual kind of ethics apply. I don't think there's any additional ethics there. Code switching, I haven't done too much work with it, but I know these models are brilliant because they're trained on multilingual. Language isn't a problem for them. Different languages, they understand them. You can try that with even with ChatGPT. You can put some code switched text into ChatGPT and ask it to give it to you in Afrikaans, or in isiZulu or Xhosa or something like that, and it'll do it. You know, it doesn't care. It doesn't worry about that because all it's doing is sort of predicting words, and it sort of knows what that word is in that sequence. And even if it's in a different language, it makes no difference to these models. That's why they're so good. I mean, I'm based in Helsinki at the moment, and I'm using Google Translate. You point to, you don't know what the food is in the supermarket. You just point Google Translate at it and take a picture, and it tells you in English. I'm looking for meat products in your food.
Oh,
It's very good. They're very good. They're agnostic. They're sort of language agnostic, these models.
well, this all
Great
sounds
question.
great. Thank you so much for your time today, Prof. And that's all we have time for today. Please also watch this if you missed a step. We did receive that we're going a bit fast, but you will find the link on YouTube. You'll also find it in our website at Methods Lab. For the rest of your day, please have a good day. Goodbye.
Thank you all. Cheers.